Sup everyone, welcome back to another video, and as people have demanded me to make this a recurring series, here I am. I'm showcasing you guys pretty much top meta players in CN, around 120,000 players from CN, and the pool of data that they've consistently gathered every single month, the best characters, the most changing of usage rates in terms of characters, so the movement of characters in comparison to last patch. On top of that, the most used teams for first half, second half, and of course a general tier list here. I'm going to be breaking things down, talking you guys through it all and what all the numbers mean and the translations. If this is your first time watching one of these videos, you might be a little overwhelmed with all the Chinese, and I've also wanted to answer this question for you guys in the video. For those who are asking down in the comments saying, Walrus, what is this website? How come I cannot access it? It's unfortunately not a website. This is an application within another application. If you guys know what WeChat is kind of like WhatsApp, kind of like Line, but for Chinese people. And in WeChat, there are smaller apps that have different features, and this is one of those apps. So unfortunately, unless you have WeChat, you are unable to access this database. However, don't worry, every single time a new Abyss rotation begins, I will share all this data with you guys. I'm going to make this a permanent series because of how supportive you guys have been with it. Okay, so without further ado, let's start evaluating this. This is the data that they have right now, meaning that the people who have already played through the Abyss and cleared the Abyss, this is what they used. At the very top, you guys will see, no surprise at all, Nahida shoots up straight to 87%. With her current rerun, it's to be expected. Shenhe and Ayaka has now dropped back down to around 30%, which is exactly what I said will happen last patch. Characters such as Nahida and Nilou this patch obviously will be strong because they have their current running banners, right? It's the other characters that have currently no reruns and are still performing consistently well that you should be looking to as strong characters. For example, Yelan, Raiden Shogun, Bennett, Kokomi, Kazuha, Zhongli, right, Alhaitham, Yaimiko, and Jiangling, Xingqiu obviously, but Kukishinobu obviously as well. There's very little replacement, if any, for her, and the only one is probably Dori, but Dori doesn't do the job nearly as well as Kukishinobu does, so by default, she is the best option. So that's what I always tell you guys. Even in last Abyss cycle, I told you guys, do not focus on the numbers for Ayaka and Shenhe because it's their current rerun. In fact, you should be looking at characters who don't have their rerun. Now, are Nahida and Nilou good characters? Obviously they are. It's just right now they're bumped up a little bit higher than they usually be. I would say Nahida hovers around 70%, Nilou hovers around 40% usually, but right now heavily inflated numbers. Okay, but let's just not look at the top options. Let's look at some other options here, and in terms of fluctuation, the rest has remained mostly unchanged. Hu Tao sitting in A, right? We got Tartaglia, we got Ayato, really popular characters overall, and then we have the B tier. B tier is probably what most of you guys have mains in, right? Like very few people in chat, at least from my perspective, mains like Zhongli. I'm a Zhongli main, I'm a Kokomi main, not that many. And these characters usually are not DPS characters. The only outlier would be Alhaitham and kind of Nilou. You would say she's a DPS character. Usually support DPSs, support buffers, debuffers, they make it up here, right? Elemental applicators, that's usually when. Alhaitham arguably is like the only DPS centric character up here. Like he's an on-field dedicated DPS. Jiangling is an off-field support DPS, right? Stuff like that. Xingqiu off-field support DPS. Usually A tier, B tier is when you'll see the dedicated main on-field DPSs, because believe it or not, in Genshin Impact, it's not the on-field DPSs that decides how much damage you deal. It's really the support. So Hu Tao, consistent as always, one of the best options outside of the supportive rosters, right? What's crazy is that a character from the standard banner such as Tainari is making it extremely high on this list. 17.5%. He's borderline creasing into that A tier. It seems like people in CN really enjoy how he plays, right? He has a taunt with his elemental skill and generally just shooting out arrows very quickly, has very little risk to his playstyle. So playing Tainari is very hands-on, very easy. One of the bigger changes this cycle is the MCs have risen up quite a lot. They've overtaken Sino, at least in CN. Remember, this is CN data. It's the meta from CN. And everyone else kind of remained mostly unchanged. We have Venti here, kind of still used more, at least in CN, comparative to Sucro. Sucro actually dropped down even more from her 4%. I recall last patch. Dia has fallen quite substantially since last patch. I remember she was 11% and now she's down to 4%. I expect this number to fall maybe another 1 to 2% in the coming patches. She'll most likely hover around 3 to 2% usage, maybe better than Klee, but eventually I expect her to even out around where Klee currently is. All right, so around 1% or so. Right now, looking at this, I'm sure you guys can get a picture of what kind of meta space this is, but just to give you guys peace of mind, let's see the rest of the C tier characters. Boom, you have it right here. I don't think anybody would be too surprised, but I think 0.1% characters don't necessarily mean they're like trash characters. It's just either A, they have far better alternatives to them, or B, they're not fun to play. I mean, like the kits they offer provides more challenge than there is satisfaction to overcome those challenges, or they don't have synergies that are enjoyable in the game as of now. Surprised to see D-Luke here. Man really has fallen since patch 1.0. He's the least used, I guess, standard banner character now, next to Chi-Chi, right? So it's mainly because there's much better pyro alternative options. Okay, so now that you guys seen this, let's move on to other statistics. We have now the rate changes. The usage rate change for this cycle is pretty intense, and this is what I've highlighted previously with Nilou as well. I mentioned this in Nilou's video, but now you guys see it here on screen through statistics. I mentioned Nilou is one of the characters that has the biggest usage swings out of all the other characters. When she's good, she's completely OP busted broken, really just makes the game so much easier for you. But when she's not that good, her rate drops down quite substantially. As you can see, an increase of 39.5%. It's not even close to second place. Nahida with a boost of 12.3%. That's like triple, more than triple of what Nahida's rate. So you guys can really see the importance, right, of Nilou when she does shine. However, I do have to warn you guys, there are situations where using her can be tougher, not as fluid. Don't let certain abyss cycles affect how you pull and play the game, because if you pull Nilou for this abyss cycle, you're gonna hurt yourself in the long run. In fact, I always urge people to look at the next best character that's not on the rerun, and that's the character that you guys should maybe pay more attention to, which is the MC. The MC right now currently has a 10.3% usage increase in the CN meta, followed by Yelan with a 9.2%. Now Yelan probably is like the biggest MVP in terms of general value for character, shooting beyond 70% now into the 80 percentiles. It's just incredible what this character continues to put out. Now the haters would say that I am kind of having a bias towards Yelan, but obviously it's not just me who's having a bias. It seems the entirety of the general meta players in CN has a huge bias towards Yelan. Now, is it the haircut? Is it the fur coat? Is it the sexy lingerie that she's wearing? Or is it the BDSM vibe that she kind of gives off in her trailer? I don't know, but they love her. People in the West loves her. She's really good, and honestly, if you have an opportunity, you should pick one up for yourself. Moving downwards, we can see Ujosara, Zhongli, and general electro buffers, electro applicator, DPSs. Ito has a pretty nice boost as well, because obviously this abyss, you don't want to get interrupted. You just want to sit there and smash away, and Ito just does that spectacularly. Okay, Kokomi, Sino, and then Kuki Shinobu. These are some of the best gaining characters in this patch. Again, don't look the first two because they have reruns. Most likely last patch it was Ayaka and Shenhe which had the biggest boost. So never look at the top two. This is a bait. They're anomalies. Moving on to the biggest losers of this patch. Well, surprise, surprise. The harder you rise, the harder you fall, right? Negative 20% and 22%. Doesn't look very good for the characters. Xingqiu also dropped off by 15%, Xiangling dropped off by 14%, Hu Tao dropped off by 11.8%, right? There's a lot of these characters that have dropped off, and still Hu Tao is clinging on to that A tier even after losing 11.8%. So technically, I think she got bumped down from S tier to A tier, but still understand that if you have a Hu Tao, this should only make you happy, because Hu Tao's movement has always been between 30 and 40 something percent. The best I've seen Huta was in the 50%, but that's when she has her rerun. 40 something percent is incredible. 30% is very good. And if your character that you main or you play or you invest into hovers around this range of usage rate, you know the meta players really like her. And as I mentioned in the chart earlier, Huta is the second highest rated DPS, second to only Alhaitham, and this should put her in a very solid spot as one of the top contenders for best DPS in the game. She's released back in, I believe, 1.2 or 1.3. Alhaitham was released just a patch or two ago, right? So she can still keep up with the modern usage rate, and meta players really favor her in a lot of Abyss cycles. Now, if we move down, Kazuha here losing a little bit of usage rate, not too surprising, it's fine, understandable. Yaimiko losing 10% kind of hurts, but she's still very consistent, sitting in, I believe, S tier according to the chart, right? Highly used unit still. You just don't get better than just Yaimiko application. Drop your things, get out. The only annoying part about her is how long it takes to set up the totems, but if you can utilize those movements well enough, you can actually use them to dodge some abilities. So it really depends on how good you are with Yaimiko, her animations, and just her general movement. Dia having a 6.9% drop rate kind of feels like a main. Remember I said she was 11%. There it is. I'm from 11.1 to 4.2. And again, it's going to keep dropping more and more. So these are the general characters that you see the biggest movement. You wouldn't really be surprised to see some of these top units if you've been following the series. It's always the top units because that's where the usage discrepancy happens. If a character has 0.1% usage rate, you're never going to suddenly expect them to go from 0.1 to like 10%, right? It just doesn't work like that. The ones that are not used are almost never used. It's consistently not used, meaning by definition, bad characters. However, play the game however you want. I'm just here to share some data with you guys, okay? And here's the final one. These are the team usage rate. I usually make a separate video with this, but I think while you guys are still here, might as well just get all this over with, right? So the top most used team, obviously in the second half, that's what this number means, is 42.3%. Holy crap, almost half of the people use this team, almost half. And it's all in the second half, and this is the reason why the MC got boosted so much. This is the team that single-handedly lifted the MC by 10% usage over just this patch alone, right? Nilu, Kokomi, Nahida, and MC. Kind of a whale team with 3 5-stars, but they get the job done. Incredible. The ownage rate for this team is only 23.8%. So only 23.8% of the entire 120,000 players that participated in this data study owns all 4 of these characters, right? Basically owns this team. I'm guessing a lot of ones are Nilu and Kokomi that people don't own. But yeah, this is the most used team. And then followed by that, it's a Raiden national variation. Instead of Xingqiu, you use Yelan, right? This is used predominantly in the first half. So technically, these two teams combined is what people, well, the majority of people are using to clear the Spiral Abyss in CN in terms of meta. And if you look at the number 3 team, even though Ayakan Shinhe has the biggest drop-off rate, they're still the number 3 most used team. So just because you see them dropping off a lot, it only means they return back to normalcy. The patch before, they were heavily incentivized and boosted. Now, if you guys can see here, 98% are using them in the second half, meaning it's either this team or this team predominantly. If you combine the usage rate 42.3% to 34.3%, you get a rough estimate of like what, 76.6% usage rate. So 76, 3/4 of the people who ran this Abyss, 3/4 of them ran it with these two teams in the second half, right? And the 35% of the people ran this team for the first half. That's what this chart means. If you guys want to study it, you can pause the video. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. That's just what the current Abyss is like. This data will continue to get updated, but I doubt much is going to change. People, pull responsibly, invest responsibly. Resources in Genshin Impact aren't cheap. They don't come easy as well. I know a lot of you guys work hard to save up this stuff. So do what you guys want, but remember to have fun. And yeah, have any questions, leave it down below. I will continue to make this series and provide you guys the data from CN. So until next time, I urge y'all to stay safe. Peace, bye bye.